agree, Aman, that this one's going to be close. It might just come down to those final few bullet games. We might even have a margin of just a point to decide the winner. But in my mind, just Arjun's cool composure, his experience with these big stage matches, the run that he had at the EWC, at the Esports World Cup, he's been in the quarterfinals of last year's SEC. I think that experience will count for something today in this match. In my head, not completely buying that prediction model.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that it's tough to call these really, really close ones. The advantage has to go somewhere. It was a little bit of what I expected in terms of the bullet maybe being the difference. And well, Tanya, we have games underway. The action is upon us, and we are in the 5-minute portion. Of course, there's increment in all of these formats.
They got a 1 second bonus time, and we had, well, it starts with the Berlin defense. Is that a bit of a surprise for you coming out with knight f6, Denis Lazavik keeping it solid? Or do you think we can expect that approach, throwing the ball to Arjun saying, come at me?
Yeah, I love that approach in the first game. I wonder, Tanya, if we're really going to see this fizzle out in just a matter of seconds. But no, we see d5. Let's see. This is the moment here. Normally knight takes on d4, and then the d-pawn moving, we might get a repetition. But no, the players are here to at least play a little bit longer.
I love it. I love that it starts with a solid opening, but we get a game still simply because we've got pawn majorities on opposite flanks. So at least this one is going to play out. And we spoke about this, right? This is a marathon of a match. You've got these 3 different segments. The players also need to feel each other out in the first few rounds.
Yeah, agree. We're seeing this move f6. This challenges the pawn center here. You can't just let that e5 pawn stay there unopposed. After the dust has settled from the opening, Tanya, we have kind of a dark square concept that white is trying to execute here. Maybe pawn to b4, knight to b3, and just taking control of these dark squares. Usually a nice idea is for white to try to trade off the dark square bishops, if possible, but difficult to achieve.
And that's because in compensation, Denis has got the bishop pair, right? If you're able to neutralize that advantage, then you're playing for the full control. And we've got Denis here advancing his own pawns, trying to push that d pawn forward as well to neutralize the double c pawns. Arjun, meanwhile, putting some pressure on c5.
Yeah, and there's a big reason why the move c5 was played. You don't want those double pawns to be completely immobile. By pushing the pawn up to c4, you earn yourself the c5 square, as we see the bishop coming out to c5. Interestingly enough, if the bishop actually takes that knight, we get opposite bishops. I do like Arjun's chances with the pass pawn. So don't be thinking that that's like just a draw. I actually think Arjun has a decent shot here.
Well, it's happening. Exactly what you predicted. The opposite color bishop, white's bishop, just seems a little more active, tying down Denis's rook to defend that a7 pawn. He'll also have control on the f line. Meanwhile, Denis's bishop on e6 purely playing a defensive role for the next entirety of the game.
Yeah, basically forever here. You mentioned the a pawn. At some point, black will find the time to probably put it on a light square. We see a clever attack of the a pawn here with the queen. Neither bishop really wants to move from these amazing squares. So I wonder, are we going to see the a pawn move up to a5, maybe black match with pawn to a6? Everyone's just trying to get those pawns onto safe squares.
And that's a great point, because if the black bishop was to move anywhere, I think Arjun would be more than happy to sacrifice that e5 pawn out just to get the open diagonal for his dark squared bishop. Right now, a threat on the board, queen takes pawn. So really inviting a decision. Do you want to play a5, allowing that queen to jump over to b5, creating more attacking ideas?
Yep, exactly. And well, this is one way to defend the a pawn. If the black queen were to grab the a4 pawn, then queen could slide down to f8, which would be a brilliant sacrificial checkmate. But of course, never going to happen between these two.
That's a very powerful defense. It simply make sure that queen isn't running anywhere. And meanwhile, what Denis does is frees up his own rook to perhaps go over to the B line. I do think that this position, this game, despite liking Arjun's control on the dark squares, the nicely placed queen and rook on the open F line, Denis also has things under control. It might just not be enough to make something out of the position for white.
Yeah, and I do think if White's B pawn was on B4, that would really like the position a lot more. But still, I maintain that, if anyone has an advantage, I feel like it has to be Arjun just with this E pawn. It is the only passed pawn in the position, and Black does have these double pawns, but certainly I agree. Very, very equal. Maybe with a slight push for Arjun. We'll have to see how things continue.
I'm loving the speed with which Denis is playing. He's up on the clock, position pretty much under control. He's activated his queen. Notice how all of Denis's pieces are on light squares. Same color as his own bishop, making sure nothing can get under attack. He also creates a lift for his king, eyeing queen c2 ideas, or even the black bishop eventually coming from f5 to e4.
Yeah, and normally it's kind of tempting for White to play rook f3, rook g3, especially when Black doesn't really have the ability to ever challenge the f file. So both players hiding the king, playing like we're basically seeing the mirrored ideas here, right? h3, h6, king h7, king h2. White just has maybe the idea of lifting the rook that Black doesn't have.
It's the waiting game. Hopefully, we'll also have the mating game when the players do get to attack each other's king with the ideas that you pointed out of the rook lift. But for now, both players playing it slow, slowly improving the position. I'm still thinking that most likely this should end peacefully. Your idea on the board, and before rook comes to g3, Denis chasing White's queen. A queen trade would be pretty much a draw on the spot.
I agree. Yeah, that will pretty much do it because the pawn can take back and then the bishop can cement itself on d5. Everything is defended. So I think that we're seeing Arjun show that he's interested in playing on, avoiding the queen exchange. He's a little bit down on time, but Denis also knows there's nothing inherently wrong with his position. So he's honestly fine. Just probably shuffle queen g6, queen e4, Tanya, for a really long time and say, okay, you want to play for a win? Let's see it.
And the big reason for that is that all squares in which White can enter from are completely controlled. Yes, your rook can go to g3, but notice how the black bishop stops queen f7. The black rook controls the f8 square, so there's really no way to double down on the black king. And c5, a little in the air as well.
Yeah, c5 is just nearby. It means that if you bring that queen maybe out of the way, c5 will force the bishop back. That's not what you want to happen. I imagine maybe a repetition here, Tanya. Is it that time?
It could be that time of the night, Aman. As we see Arjun, he's tried a couple of things, he's tried to maneuver, and there we have it. It is draw in that.